Most people think success, including massive income, comes from hustling and grinding. But it was one principle that flipped everything for one of our clients, which resulted in him landing a $1.25 million deal. After teaching this to high performers for years, I've seen it work again over and over. So in this video, I'm going to show you how the mirror principle drives effortless results and how you can tap into this today. So to show you that this is an actual thing, a real thing with a real client, I'm gonna play a clip from him really quick with him stating that this is the case.
I sold two of my biggest deals ever during this course, 1.25 million, and I attracted them effortlessly.
Yeah.
It was more than just those, all the little ones too. I feel like there's been way less of a fearful grind, after attracting a few really big property deals and selling 1.25 million, and they're ranting and raving how good of a job I did. And you go through those experiences and you see yourself in that new way. A lot of good things came from it, man, but it was just the satisfying experience of doing it all. I feel like I really, really tried to do it all. I tried to read every single book in the time frame that I could. Like I feel like I put the effort in. So I'm proud of being a student through it. I'm proud of having done it.
Now, Brian, while going through my advanced reality creation coaching program, which you can learn more about down below, learned not only how to use the mirror principle effectively, but was kept accountable and consistent so that the results came through powerfully. And as I go through this video explaining the mirror principle and how it works to you, you'll see the importance of this. Now, this wasn't the only sale or win that happened for Brian as he was going through this program. As he applied this universal principle and the other ones we gave, he had many more results come through, which again, I'll share with you really quick.
And I had 4 positive confirmations with business in one evening right after this. So I had a really stressful listing that I'm selling that I for sure it's falling apart. There's no way this is going to close. The buyers want the moon. It's not going to happen. We put our foot down. They signed. We're going to closing. I had $1 million offer on one of my listings that's been sitting for 90 days. The seller's been hurting because it's a tough market. That's under contract now, closing in January. I had one of my investor clients get back off the fence saying, we're ready to buy a duplex now. I had one of my favorite past clients move to Florida last year saying, I hate Florida. I'm coming back. I'm buying a new place. You're my agent. So 4 things at once in the evening right after that was just undeniable. Super exciting.
And again, this isn't a standalone result. Here is another one from a different client who used these principles in order to earn way more in their life.
Let me just say this shit's working, like big time. I went from being on the back roads to the interstate. Everything's moving really, really fast. April was the most money I've ever made in my life. I made like $20,000 last month in 1 month. And then like, I'm already off to $5,000 this month. Like this month's going really good too. Like everything's falling into place right now. Those that recognize the mystery school will know, but those of us that get off on mysticism, it's there for us. But those of us that don't really want to go there, this program is set up just fine for them, for everyone too. So
now I share these results with you because I want to show you that this works, and it will work for you too if you apply certain things. Now let's go over how this principle works and how these two, among many others we've worked with and many others who apply this principle, have used it to generate wealth, to develop better relationships, and to ultimately create their reality in the ways that they want now and moving forward. So first off, let's briefly cover what the mirror principle is. I've described this in many videos before, but it's always good to review it so that you're exposed to it more, so it's sinking in. So we're going to cover it really quick, again, what this actually is, how it operates, and all that. So the mirror principle essentially states that the outer world, so the physical world of your 5 senses, follows or comes from what we call the inner world. Now, your inner world you can think of as your non-physical self. So this is like your thoughts, which are non-physical, your visualizations, your imaging, your connection to source, God, the universe, the field, whatever you want to call it, your emotional self. energy in motion is how we can break down that word. So it's these parts of you that are absolutely exist, but are outside or beyond the physical five senses that you operate from in the physical world. Now, most people believe that in order for them to be successful, and usually this means earning more money, upgrading their lifestyle, whatever else it is, that they have to hustle and grind. You have to work yourself to the bone. You got to work 16, 18-hour days or whatever else it is. However, that isn't so. When we hustle and grind, we are only utilizing usually the physical component of ourselves and neglecting the other parts, or at least the potential of the other parts. You might be using it a little bit, but there's so much more potential if we turn our attention instead to the inner world, which once again is creating and giving birth to the outer world. You can actually think of it like this. The outer world are the effects of the causes in the inner world. So you're just seeing the effects of what's been going on in your inner world, in your life, in your physical world. So it goes without saying that it is much more powerful to start from the inner, or at least to give it a lot more attention. This is the mental and spirit part of yourself, which is what's, again, creating the outer world. Essentially, if your inner world is incredibly negative, neglected, and so on, this will be reflected in your outer world. But if your inner world is positive, it's nurtured, it's high energy, that will be reflected in your outer world as well. It works both ways. Now, a lot of people, when they're first exposed to this, who are coming from, let's say, more of a negative experience so far in their outer, they start trying this and go, well, why aren't things changing? Because you have to understand that the physical world, this narrow bandwidth of what's out there that we call the physical, is the densest rate of vibration. When you think of the mental and the emotional, these are things you can do instantaneously. Like you can think a certain thought instantaneously. It doesn't manifest in the physical right away, but you can think of it instantaneously, right? You can feel an emotion almost instantaneously, especially when you train yourself, because these are higher rates of vibration. Rates meaning speed of vibration in this case. They are at a much higher speed and therefore can come in the non-physical world instantaneously. If I tell you to think of a red apple and you don't have any problems visualizing, you will see it right away. If I tell you to think of the word strong, you can see that in your mind's eye right away. If I tell you to think of something that you cherish, a memory you cherish, and you bring that up, you could probably feel corresponding emotions like love, happiness, joy, pretty quickly, right? Like it's almost immediate. But the physical is the densest rate of vibration. What does this mean? Is it takes longer for things to show up in the physical, in this bandwidth, this frequency that we call the physical, that we interpret through our five senses. It takes what's called concentrated particle flow or concentrated energy, including thought energy and the spirit energy, for it to start accumulating enough to come into your physical. So it's not something where you can have a reality for yourself that's been primarily negative because of how you've been in the inner world up to that point, and then go, oh, I can change it just by thinking a little bit differently. No, like I said earlier with Brian, it's because he was held accountable and did this consistently that his physical began to change. But also keep this in mind. Things can change very quickly when you get this right. It does not need to take as long to create a more coherent outer world than it did to create an incoherent one. We're not going to get into this too deeply in this video, but the system, God, source, whatever you want to call it, actually has a vested interest in you having more coherence rather than less, to be in a greater level of consciousness rather than a less. It's kind of why when you're in a circumstance that's more of a lower level of consciousness or lower coherence, it's quite painful, right? It almost urges you and tries to inspire you to move differently, right? So it actually takes less time to build up the so-called positive in your physical by concentrating on certain things in the inner than it did to build the so-called negative you find in your life through also those inner world workings that you've been doing. This is why in our advanced reality creation program, we take our clients like Brian and Tyson, who you heard from, through a protocol that's months long because it keeps them in the work long enough. It teaches them the principles they need at the given time. If they go off track, we can bring them right back on track, and it helps keep them consistent long enough to develop the inner energy, thinking, feeling, and everything else to change the outer, for the outer to start shifting, because again, it's following the cues from the inner. It is the effects of the inner causes. Now, let's jump to why you want to be focusing on the inner world so much more than you've been doing up to this point, because I'm mentioning how the outer world follows the inner, but why is that? Well, it's because we've actually, for the most part, and most of us have been lied to, whether intentionally or not, I believe intentionally to at least some degree, that our reality is mainly physical. We've been sold the lie of materialism. When in reality, our reality, like this existence that we're living, yes, there is this narrow bandwidth in which we call the physical, that we have these physical bodies that exist and move through time and space in this physical plane. But it is not the only plane, and it is not even close to everything that is out there. In fact, our reality is mainly empty space and energy. 99.9+%, in fact, empty space and energy. If you're even to look at the atoms that are the building blocks of what we call the physical, so everything here everything has atoms. I have atoms, you have them. When we look at those building blocks of the physical and we dive deep into an atom, you will find that it is mainly empty space and energy. Again, 99.9+% of atoms are empty space and energy, meaning the thing that is building you up to appear physical is actually mainly empty space and energy. Again, keep in mind that the physical is actually the same thing as energy. It is just a denser rate of vibration that makes it appear physical. If you were to raise the vibration of something, it would actually start to lose form and move up the pole, so to speak, closer to energy, and therefore not be able to be perceived anymore in the physical plane. So our reality is mainly empty space and energy. It is mainly made up of the things that we can relate to the inner world. And so most people are focusing on this tiny percentage, the 0.000001% that is physical matter reality, and trying to push that around and change it and mold it and manipulate it in order to get results in their life. For example, like hustling and grinding. Now, that will work to an extent, but it is the most inefficient way to go about it and leads to a ton of problems. Burnout, health issues, sacrifices in other areas of your life, just an empty feeling. How many times have we heard of people who have hustled and grinded to lots of money and then feel empty inside, right? Because they're focusing on this tiny narrow bandwidth of what reality actually is, when there's this whole other side of you that we can call the non-physical that is connected to this 99.9+% of what reality actually is. So this is why it's so crucial to focus also on the inner world, because the inner world is connected to that 99.9+% of everything that's kind of going on here. It is connected to the thing that gives birth to what you are experiencing in your physical life. And so it is better, at least I would invite you to see how it is better, that we connect more to that and start birthing new things into our lives, creating new things in our lives, attracting new things in our lives, instead of trying to mold and change and manipulate the things already here. For example, if I don't like this thing in my background right here, I don't like this crystal back here, what would be a better thing for me to do? Would it be take that and try and crush it and mold it and turn it into something else? Or would it be to request the thing I want? Right, to actually start focusing on the thing I want so I can bring it in here. And that might be as simple as buying it. That might be as simple as having that as something as a goal, right? But it would be much easier to go through the inner world that we're gonna go over here via the mirror principle than to take this and try and turn it into something else. This is simply an energetic history. Everything in here is an energetic history that's come about because of how I've been vibrating and being in the inner world leading up to this moment. And it is the same in your reality as well. A scientific quote that I love that has been mentioned quite a bit, and I like to mention this one, I think it's so profound, is the idea that if you were to remove the empty space and energy from every single person on the planet, so we have about 8 billion people, I don't know what it is now, maybe it's close to 9, no clue, but it's a lot of people, right? It's a ton of people, more than you could possibly imagine, right? If you were trying to think of all those people. If you were to remove all of the empty space and energy in each of those people, right? You just removed it, took it away, you would only be left with enough physical stuff to fit within a sugar cube. That is how physical reality actually is. So our reality is mainly non-physical, but yet we very rarely focus on the things that influence the non-physical intentionally. So by influencing your inner world, you'll start having more control of what shows up in your outer. So let's go over an important component of the mirror principle that allowed Brian, Tyson, and so many others to have these sales, more money come in, and just greater experiences. And this is called the law of balance. This will explain what it looks like when the inner starts being seen in the outer, and also how to do this yourself. Now, it's important to understand that the law of balance and harmony is pretty much the predominant law of our universe, the law of kind of our reality. So it's pretty crucial to understand and know how to utilize and apply. So in our universe, everything is trying to balance and harmonize. Now, recognize when I say harmonize in this context, we're not saying that as a automatic positive connotation. A lot of people, when they hear the word harmony, they think of, oh, like peace and serenity, like good things, it feels good. That's not what it means in this case. It means it's simply going to harmonize with whatever's being given. It's going to harmonize the outer and inner world. It's going to balance them them and make sure they are on the same frequency. So if you're thinking fear, what harmonizes with fear? Well, fear, right? Or similar emotions. If you're in joy, what harmonizes with joy? Well, joy, peace, clarity, gratitude, these kinds of things, right? So when we're talking about harmony, we're not talking about an automatically positive thing that we would normally think of when we hear this word. Because you think of harmony, and we almost always associate that and symbolize that with things like peace, serenity, and things we consider positive. So understand in this context, balance and harmony is not talking about that. It is talking about harmonizing, right? So if fear, it harmonizes with fear. If it's joy, it harmonizes with joy or similar. We're not just saying that it's a automatic, what we perceive as positive thing. Now, how does the law of balance and harmony work when it comes to us in creation? Well, it's basically what we've been saying, the outer following the inner. The outer world will start to harmonize with what you're doing in the inner. So if your inner world is chaotic and incoherent and incredibly negative, and in things like guilt and fear and shame, you're thinking thoughts of that like, then you're going to have a balancing and harmony in your outer world. Now, for a lot of people, balance and harmony has already been achieved and maintained, and they're experiencing that in their outer world. And so how we activate the law of balance and harmony to our advantage is we actually want to get ourselves out of balance and out of harmony with our current physical lives. If you are not enjoying your current circumstances, or you're looking to up-level and upgrade to a new set of circumstances, you have to get yourself out of balance with what's currently here in your physical. So if your physical is here and you're balanced with this, then how do we gain an imbalance that's beneficial to us? Well, we need to raise our inner world. That means we need to start thinking differently, we need to start feeling differently or entertaining different feelings, we need to visualize differently, and we need to be way more intentional about how we're cultivating that inner garden that then the laws of balance and harmony will then balance with. Now, there's only two ways for something to balance when you get out of balance. And you may recognize this for a lot of people who have, especially when they go alone, this happens to a lot of people. I just call it the one step back or one step forward, one step back syndrome when people do this work. And a lot of times, yes, they're doing it alone. They can't see the pitfalls, but they also don't understand the law of balance and harmony. And so what occurs is, you're here, physical world, here's your inner world. They start watching this stuff. They start thinking a little bit better. So this starts to raise. They're starting to do it maybe for that first week or however long. And the physical world's still here. So again, there's this imbalance now. And balancing forces have to come in to maintain balance. That's their job, right? So they go, okay, there's only one of two ways to balance. They're here, physical world's here. Either the physical world has to come up to meet you. That's one way of balancing, and that's the one you want, right? You want your circumstances to come up to now meet this new frequency and vibration that you are maintaining. However, there is another way for things to balance and harmonize, and this is what happens to most people, especially when they're not experienced in doing this, or they haven't removed certain blocks, certain victimhood things of that nature. What happens is certain things start to kick up, because guess what? When you're going from here to here, changes will occur in your life. Certain things will have to be removed because they can't exist at this new frequency. And so what happens is a little bit of chaos comes in, your outer world starts shifting and people get scared, so they come back down in their inner world to maintain balance here. Certain thoughts to get hooked by, certain feelings again, and suddenly balance and harmony has been maintained and balancing forces have done their job and they're satisfied. It doesn't care, again, in which way it balances, its job is to balance and harmonize. And again, we need to get ourselves out of balance. And like I mentioned earlier, it's important with the mirror principle, accountability and consistency is maintained, because if you're doing this, then coming down here, balance has been maintained. You want to be here, and maybe sometimes you get seduced in the coming down, but boom, you're right back there. Someone helps you stay there. You use the tools in order to stay at this place. Again, if you come down here, you recover quickly so that energy can be maintained. And if you do that by law, there is only one other way to balance. This comes up. And this is why when people do this, and this is what we've experienced when we're coaching people in our program, is certain events start coming out of seemingly nowhere. Because what's really happening is this is coming up to meet this new inner place that you've been vibrating at. It starts to come up, and so certain events, people, and circumstances start finding you because you're now on this new frequency, and things have to balance. And again, like some of the craziest things can begin to happen, like that phone call for the dream job just comes out of nowhere. We've had stuff like that happen. We had a client who left her job before the beginning of the program because it didn't align, and a new one found its way to her in a few weeks of doing this, right? A better one. Actually, we've had that happen multiple times where that's shown up. We had a client very very recently who just wants to start writing and wants to be an author and started doing this thing, and she was compelled to reach out to a well-published, like, best-selling author, and most times people won't even do that because they're like, they won't respond to me. The person responded to her, not only responded to her, but started reading her book, giving her feedback, and encouraging her, and is like now giving her like kind of mentorship, right? So these things begin to happen as you start maintaining yourself at this new level. But if you come back down, balance and harmony will be maintained. So if you start again vibrating higher and you stay there, you keep yourself accountable or have someone help you do that, which is what I recommend. It's really hard when you go alone, but you can still do it. It's still possible, but it is very difficult. When you have consistency and you're vibrating higher, then the law of balance will start to be activated and start coming up to meet you. So now you understand a little bit more of how this works, how the law of balance, which is crucial to understand, works. Now there is a final crucial component that I kind of mentioned a little bit, but I want to go even deeper into it. And this is, again, where that one step forward, one step back syndrome really kicks in. Because again, when you're up here and the physical's now trying to come up to meet you to balance, a storm or what seems to be chaos will start to appear. Now, it's not really, but this will happen because things are changing in your physical to make room for the new physical life that you want to have. And sometimes for people, this looks like losing a job. Maybe certain relationships break down. Maybe you lose some finances for a while or whatever else it is. And again, most people panic and go down to their comfort zone, which is the old level of thinking, and balance is maintained. And so, so those things that were kicking up cease to kick up because the chaos goes away, because there's no change that's needed to happen now because you balanced. But this is where most people, again, stumble. You need to embrace the storm and embrace the chaos and trust the process here. There's really no two ways around it, because these changes are occurring because you are at this new place and it is trying to balance. And if you can embrace and come through that storm, that's when the quantum leap will happen, the thing out of left field will come in, and everything else. But if you get seduced by the chaos and go back down, none of those new things are going to happen. That new frequency is now, you're not on it anymore, so what exists on that frequency can't come into your life. In order for you to receive change in your physical life, the physical has to change. There's no two ways about it, right? And so you have to know how to embrace and kind of ride that storm in a calm way, while even when that's going on, your inner world still stays elevated. So it is crucial you embrace this in a very specific way, and to help you with this, I have created another video over here that's going to share with you that process of how you can start embracing these storms and a little more of what's going on and why we want to do that, called the Law of Continuity. So I would go check that out next if you want to learn how you can embrace those storms once you are doing this work and staying consistent.